What happens when a man with everything, power, wealth, and control, realizes he's still empty where it counts? And what if the one woman he hires to forget ends up being the only one he can't let go of? Hey family, welcome back to Mr. Hearthline Stories. Before we begin, I'm praying that love visits your doorstep, peace guards your heart, and that no one in your home ever feels forgotten. If you believe every soul deserves dignity and love, comment "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline," and tap subscribe so we can keep growing this family together. Let's get into it. Cassian Ward was the kind of man whose name only lived on headlines, contracts, and estate deeds, not in hearts. Not anymore. Some said he was ruthless, others said he was hollow. But those who knew the truth, and there were very few, understood that he had been both created and crushed by betrayal. It was nearly midnight when he made the call. No assistant, no scheduler, just him. He didn't want company. He wanted a transaction. Clean, fast, disposable. Because 5 years ago his wife left him for his business partner, took half of what they built, abandoned their newborn twins, and never looked back. Since then, Cassian hadn't touched love. Only silence, only control. Until tonight, he opened the door himself. The woman standing there didn't wear heels. She wasn't powdered in false elegance. Her coat was too big for her frame, her eyes too sharp to be pretending. She looked at him like she was weighing her options, and mercy wasn't one of them. "Nia," she said. Her voice didn't beg or charm. It stated. Cassian didn't smile. "You're early. I can wait." He shook his head. "Come in." She stepped into his world like she'd done this before, but nothing about her felt rehearsed. "I don't do this often," she said, glancing at the polished floor beneath her worn boots. "Actually, this is my first time." He paused. "That's usually something people say when it's not." "I'm not people." Cassian studied her. There was something in her posture, rigid, proud, like a woman holding herself together with invisible thread. He poured 2 drinks. She didn't touch hers. "Why tonight?" he asked. She looked him straight in the eye. "My brother's dying." This was the fastest way to buy time. The words didn't sting. They stabbed. He didn't know her. But for the first time in years, Cassian Ward felt something that wasn't empty. Not desire, not pity, but recognition. Cassian didn't blink. She didn't lower her gaze. The fire between them wasn't attraction, it was confrontation. 2 people stripped of illusions, speaking without decoration. "What's wrong with your brother?" he asked. "Kidneys. They're failing." Nia sat stiffly in the corner armchair, never removing her coat. "The public donor list moves slow, but there's a clinic in Montreal that can keep him stabilized. If I can keep paying for treatment." Cassian leaned on the edge of the grand piano, the one he hadn't played since his divorce. "You could have begged on a street corner," he said bluntly. "I'm not a beggar," she shot back. "I didn't say you were. You implied it." Cassian tilted his head. She wasn't pretty in the usual way. She was defiant. Her face didn't ask for approval. "It dared you to look again." "You think I'm scum for showing up here," she said. "That's fine. I think the same thing about myself." Cassian didn't respond. "I spent the last week staring at a number I promised I'd never call," Nia continued. "But watching someone you love choke on dialysis tubes changes you." He moved to the window, watching the city shimmer below. "What did they tell you I wanted?" Nia's throat moved, but she didn't speak. "Let me guess," he said, turning. "An hour of your time. No names, no history. Just forget everything after." She nodded. "Once. I've had that," he said, "and I hated every second of it." Nia frowned. "Then why call?" Cassian stepped closer. "I don't want your body," he said. "I want the silence you came with, the strength in your spine, the fact that you showed up with no makeup and still dared to hold your head high." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He softened, just slightly. "Stay, talk. I'll still pay you." She exhaled shakily. "And what if I say no? Then I'll let you walk away," he said. "But you won't have to." Because I'm not asking for your dignity. I'm asking for an hour of your truth. Nia didn't trust him. She didn't trust any man who could pay for her time like groceries. And she especially didn't trust men who suddenly wanted to talk instead of touch. But she stayed, not because she needed comfort, but because her brother needed medicine by Friday. And Cassian Ward, he could pay for a year's worth with a signature. She sank slowly into the leather couch, clutching the edge like it might collapse beneath her. Cassian sat opposite her, arms on his knees, looking at her, not with hunger, but with something worse. Recognition. "Where'd you grow up?" he asked. "Places," she answered. "One foster home after another. I stopped naming them after the fifth." He nodded once. "I was raised by nannies. Different kind of neglect, same outcome." She didn't smile. "What about your parents?" He added. "They had me young," Nia said, staring at her own hands. "Too young. My mom left when I was 9. Dad OD'd on a construction site when I was 12. Silence again. Not the kind that fills space. The kind that demands attention. Cassian leaned back, folding his arms. "So why nursing?" She looked up. "Because it was the only job that paid enough to keep Tyrese out of the system. And because I was tired of watching people suffer while the world looked away." "You care about people," he said, more as a realization than a compliment. She nodded. "You don't," she replied. He didn't argue. She stood to leave. "I've told you more in 20 minutes than I've told people I've known for years. You want the money now?" he asked, rising. She paused. "No. I want to know if you're serious about helping, or if this is just your way of feeling better for one night." Cassian walked to a drawer and pulled out a check. He handed it to her without a word. She looked at the amount and swallowed hard. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not for me, for you, just until morning. Then go." She looked at the door, then back at him. She stayed, but not because she trusted him. She stayed because, for the first time, someone looked at her pain and didn't flinch. Cassian woke up before the sun. Years of emotional isolation had trained his body to rise early and sleep lightly, like a soldier waiting for a war that never ended. He didn't expect to hear humming. It came from the kitchen, soft, low, like someone trying not to wake the house. He stepped barefoot across the marble floor, stopping short when he saw her. Nia was in one of his oversized shirts now, sleeves rolled, braids pulled into a bun. She stood by the stove, flipping eggs with the kind of ease that only comes from years of doing it for someone else. "You didn't leave," he said. She didn't jump, just turned her head slightly. The trains were down, didn't feel like waiting outside in the dark. He folded his arms. "You could have asked me for a ride," she shrugged. "Didn't want to owe you more than I already do." Cassian stepped into the light, watching her move. Not seductive, just capable, warm, familiar in a way that unsettled him. He was about to say something else when the silence shattered. Tiny footsteps, fast and chaotic. Then, "Daddy!" A blur of curls and fleece pajamas flew down the stairs. 2 of them, Eli and Layla. Cassian froze. Nia did not. Before he could intercept them, they were already clinging to her legs like ivy. Layla sniffed the air. "You made eggs?" Nia crouched down, surprised but calm. "I made too much." "Think you two can help me fix that?" Eli nodded seriously. "I eat like a dinosaur." Cassian blinked. It had been months since the twins had shown that kind of trust with anyone, let alone someone new. "You didn't say you had kids," Nia murmured, eyes still on them. He cleared his throat. "People usually don't stay long enough to meet them." She glanced back at him, quiet now. She didn't say it out loud, but the meaning hung in the air. Then, "Why am I still here?" The twins devoured breakfast like it was an Olympic event. Nia sat between them, calmly pouring juice and wiping sticky hands without flinching. She didn't coddle. She didn't perform. She just was. Cassian watched from across the room, stunned by how easily his fortress had been breached. After the kids ran off to fight over who got the bigger crayon box, he finally spoke. You're good with them. Nia stood, rinsing plates. You say that like you're surprised. I am, because women like me don't usually get past the lobby. He didn't answer. She dried her hands on a towel, then turned to face him. What are you thinking? He hesitated, then said plainly, I need help. With them. And you fit. She raised a brow. Fit what? My life, my pace, my rules. You don't ask for attention. You just handle what's in front of you. She crossed her arms. That's not a compliment. That's survival. I know, he said, softly this time. He stepped closer, his voice more measured now. What if I offered you something stable? Something real, not a handout, a job. Her posture stiffened. Doing what exactly? Live-in childcare for the twins, structure, routine, security. I'd pay 6 figures a year, room, board, health benefits, everything. She blinked. 6 figures? For babysitting? For rebuilding a house I didn't know was broken, he said. Nia exhaled slowly, searching his face for the trick, the angle, the hidden sting. I don't want to be some soft story you tell at a dinner party. You'd be part of the story I never thought I'd get to tell at all. Silence fell again, thick, slow. Then she said quietly, I'll think about it. He nodded once. Good, because I wasn't asking out of guilt. I was asking because they smiled today, and they haven't in months. Nia sat alone in the guest suite Cassian had offered her for the night. It wasn't just a room, it was its own world. A fireplace crackling low, plush rugs she was afraid to step on with shoes. Framed photos of the twins smiling, always with someone else holding them, never him. She stood at the window, arms wrapped tight across her chest. The offer lingered. A job, a real one, steady money, safety, but was it worth the risk? She'd made it a rule not to trust men who had options. They rarely picked the right thing twice. Still, the way he spoke to her, not like a charity case, not like someone to be hidden, but like someone who mattered in his world, even for a moment. The knock came gently. Cassian stepped in, but stayed by the door. He didn't want to own the room. I meant what I said, he told her. You'd be helping them, and I'd pay you well enough to never consider what you almost did tonight, ever again. She turned, arms still folded. Why me? Because you didn't flinch, he said. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't treat them like a task. You saw them. She didn't answer. He walked in slowly, placed something on the nightstand. A sealed folder. A contract. Everything's written. Clean. No loopholes. You decide when you're ready. Then he paused at the doorway, voice lower now. You don't have to be grateful. Just be honest. She waited until the door closed. Then she opened the folder and cried, not because she was trapped, but because she finally had a way out. If you've ever had to fight for your family without knowing where help would come from, comment keep going below. Someone else might need to see your strength tonight. By the end of the week, Nia Ellison was no longer a guest. She was on payroll, had a wing of her own, and wore soft uniforms stitched by a tailor she never met. But she didn't feel permanent. The staff whispered when she walked by. The driver barely looked at her, and the twins' private tutor referred to her as the help even when she was standing right there. Still, Nia kept her focus. Every morning she dressed Eli and Layla, braided Layla's hair with patient hands, and packed fruit slices in bento boxes shaped like zoo animals. Every night, she tucked them in with her soft voice and slower stories, tales about mothers who returned and storms that passed. Cassian noticed. He noticed when Layla stopped crying during thunderstorms, when Eli stopped asking, "Is Daddy mad today?" He noticed the warmth filling rooms he used to pace in alone. But what he didn't notice, what he hadn't yet seen, was how the outside world was beginning to look in. It started with one blurry photo. Someone from housekeeping had snapped it. Nia and Cassian in the kitchen. She was pouring coffee. He was standing behind her, close enough to touch, smiling. By noon, it was on a blog. By evening, it was in inboxes of investors, board members, ex-wife attorneys. Billionaire's new nanny? Cassian's phone buzzed constantly. He ignored it, until his attorney texted, "You'll want to get ahead of this. It's not just gossip, it's bait." He stepped into the nursery where Nia was helping Eli pick out bedtime pajamas. She looked up at him and froze. She knew that look. Not fear, not anger, guilt, but not hers. His. "Something's wrong," she said, reading him instantly. Cassian didn't answer, just held out his phone. She saw the headline, and slowly her shoulders dropped. "So this is what kindness gets me," she whispered. Cassian didn't speak right away. That was his habit, silence before damage control. But this wasn't a deal or a hostile merger. This was a woman. And she was looking at him like a wall had just come down, one he didn't even know he'd built. "I didn't plan for this," he said quietly. Nia folded Eli's pajama shirt slowly, with care. "You planned for everything else." He stepped closer. "Let me fix it." She laughed once, a dry, humorless sound. "Fix what? That the world thinks I slept my way into your children's lives? That people with your last name only see women with mine as a headline?" Cassian flinched, not at her words, but at how true they were. "I hired you because of who you are with them," he said, nodding toward the twins' room. "And what about you?" she asked. "What am I with you?" He didn't answer, and that silence hurt more than any rumor. Later that night, the house went still. Even the walls seemed to hush. Nia stood alone on the balcony, staring out into the city she couldn't quite call home. She could feel it slipping. The stability, the warmth, the fragile thing she didn't dare name. Cassian joined her, but didn't speak. Just stood beside her, palms resting on the railing. "People think I used you," she said after a long pause. "But the truth is, I didn't even know how to ask for help until I met your children." He turned to face her. "And I didn't know what grace looked like until they met you." Their eyes met. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sexual. It was weary, honest, raw. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it, but only for a moment. Because whatever this was, it wasn't safe yet. 2 days passed. The whispers grew louder. One tabloid called her the new mistress with an old motive. Another posted a cropped photo of Cassian tying Layla's shoes while Nia stood. Beside him, captioned, "How long before the nanny becomes Mrs. Ward?" Cassian held an emergency press briefing that morning, not to address the rumors, just to steer attention away. Numbers, acquisitions, corporate matters, nothing personal. But his eyes looked like someone running out of ways to hide. Nia noticed. That night, the twins were with their grandmother, giving the estate a rare silence. Nia was in the hallway, checking the laundry room, when she heard music, faint jazz, from the piano room. She paused. Cassian sat at the grand piano, sleeves rolled, fingers gliding over the keys like he wasn't trying to be heard, just trying not to be alone. "You play?" she asked gently, leaning against the doorframe. He didn't look up. "Only when I can't sleep." "That often?" "Every night since you walked in." Nia blinked. "That's a line." "It's the truth," he said, still playing. She stepped inside slowly, stopping near the center of the room. The walls weren't judging here. The house felt quieter, almost watching. "I saw what the press wrote," she said. "I don't care. You should." He stopped playing, finally looked at her. "I care about you, Nia. Not them." She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked over, slow, cautious, like approaching something wild. She stood beside him, watching his hand rest on the keys. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. He turned in the seat, eyes locking with hers. "Then change it with me." A beat, a breath. Her face tilted, just slightly. He leaned in, and right before their lips met, she pulled back. Not out of fear, out of knowing. "I'm not a secret," she said softly. Then she turned and walked out, leaving him with silence. And something far more dangerous than scandal, hope. Nia stopped taking her meals in the main dining room. She answered Cassian's calls with short, polite responses. She stuck to a strict routine: wake the twins, prep meals, manage tutoring, disappear. The house noticed. The chef asked if she was okay. The twins asked why Miss Nia don't smile at Daddy no more. Even the security team began greeting her with softer tones, like she was leaving soon. But she hadn't packed, because she didn't know how. Cassian tried twice to talk. Once in the hallway, she ducked into the elevator. Once on the patio, she claimed a call from her brother. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. He didn't push. Not because he didn't care, but because for the first time in years, he didn't know how to reach someone without money or power. He wanted her to stay, but not as a dependent, not as an employee, as something he hadn't dared name yet. 3 days later, Cassian's ex-wife filed a surprise petition for joint custody. Her legal team cited domestic instability and a questionable relationship within the children's home. Nia's name was all over the documents. Cassian read the first 10 pages, then slammed the folder shut. He called his attorney, set a hearing. "I'll testify." "You sure?" the voice asked. "Because if this goes to court, you can't half love her. You'll have to say it out loud. All of it." Cassian didn't hesitate. "I'm done hiding what's good in my life." He went to Nia's room that evening, knocked once. She opened the door with red eyes and a tired voice. "What now?" "Court date, Monday." "Why are you telling me?" "Because I need you there. And because if I don't say this now, I never will." She leaned on the door frame. "Say what?" He looked at her like a man who had run out of ways to hold back. "I don't care what the world says. You didn't break this home. You built it." The courtroom was colder than it looked. Cassian stood near the bench, suited in grey, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. Nia sat 2 rows back, beside the twins' tutor, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Cassian's ex-wife looked polished, untouched by motherhood, armed with a legal team that referred to Nia as the subject, not a person, a problem. "Your Honor," the opposing lawyer began, "we present clear evidence of inappropriate domestic proximity between Mr. Ward and a live-in staff member. Her name is Nia Ellison," Cassian cut in. The courtroom quieted. "I'll remind you, Mr. Ward, to let your counsel speak," the judge warned. Cassian ignored him. "I hired her for the children, but she didn't just care for them, she healed them." Murmurs stirred in the gallery. The opposing lawyer stood. "So you admit to a romantic relationship with your employee?" Cassian's voice didn't waver. "I admit to respecting her, trusting her, needing her." He turned to face Nia then, eyes locked. "And yes, I love her." The room fell silent. Even Nia's breath caught. Cassian continued, "Not because she lives in my house, not because she made my children laugh again, but because she walked into my life when I was too ashamed to ask for help and gave it anyway." He looked to the judge. "That's not instability. That's what home looks like." Nia didn't cry, not there. She held herself still, unsure if she was supposed to feel grateful or scared. But in that moment, he didn't just defend her. He chose her, out loud, in public, and for a woman who had lived her whole life in silence, that sound was everything. Tyrese was thinner than Nia remembered. When she stepped into his hospital room in Montreal, he lit up with the same crooked grin he'd worn since they were kids, even though his cheeks were hollow and his arms dotted with IV bruises. "Still bossing people around?" he rasped. "Only rich ones," Nia said, forcing a smile as she hugged him carefully. Cassian lingered by the door, unsure. Tyrese raised an eyebrow. "So, this is him?" Nia nodded. Cassian stepped forward and offered his hand. "Cassian Ward." Tyrese smirked. "You look more like a politician than a boyfriend." Cassian didn't flinch. "I've been called worse." Tyrese chuckled, then coughed, hard, painful, dry. Nia moved to his side immediately. "You didn't have to come all this way," he said once the cough settled. "I did," Nia whispered, brushing his forehead. Then she looked up at the machines, at the monitors, at the cost of hope, and then at Cassian. He gave her the smallest nod. She turned back to Tyrese. "You're getting the treatment. No more delays." His eyes widened. "You can't afford..." I'm not paying for it, Nia said. We are. Tyrese glanced at Cassian, then back at his sister. Is he serious? He asked. Cassian stepped closer. Your sister saved my family. The least I can do is fight for hers. Tyrese didn't cry, but he reached out, and this time Cassian took his hand without hesitation. No headlines, no press. Just two men, one moment, and the quiet start of something that finally felt like belonging. They returned from Montreal 2 days after the surgery. Tyrese was stable. The treatment had worked, and though he'd need more care ahead, hope had been restored. Cassian didn't say much on the flight back, but his hand never left Nia's. She didn't pull away. When they got home, the twins ran into her arms before she'd even taken her shoes off. Layla clung to her waist. Eli pulled on her sleeve. Did you bring us anything? Nia smiled. Only the best gift ever. Cassian crouched beside them. We were thinking about something important. Layla tilted her head. Like what? Like making Miss Nia part of our family, Cassian said. Nia's breath caught. He stood, looked her straight in the eye. I don't have a ring tonight. I didn't want this to be polished or rehearsed. She stared at him, silent. I just know that every time I try to picture a future without you, it looks empty. The twins looked between them, confused. Eli asked, Is she going to be our new mommy? Cassian turned to them. Only if she wants to be, Layla whispered. We want her. Nia blinked hard. Her voice shook. I don't know if I know how to be someone's forever. You already are, Cassian said. You've been mine since the moment you didn't flinch when you saw my broken. He didn't kneel. He didn't hold a box. He just stood there, open, honest, changed. Nia stepped forward, placed her palm over his heart. I'll stay, she said. Not because I need saving, but because you finally stopped running. The wedding wasn't grand. No orchestra, no press, no designer dress with a name stitched into the hem. Just a quiet backyard ceremony under autumn skies, the twins tossing flower, petals like confetti, and Tyrese seated in the front row, alive and smiling. Cassian wore grey again, Nia wore ivory. He cried before she made it halfway down the aisle. They exchanged vows, handwritten on notebook paper. No speeches, no performance, just truth. I never thought I'd want another heartbeat beside mine, he told her, voice cracking. But you reminded me I had one. Nia smiled through tears. I used to think love was something I had to earn by bleeding for it. But you gave it to me just because I existed. The guests stood to clap. Eli and Layla didn't understand the weight of it all, but they felt it. And when the minister said, You may kiss the bride, it wasn't fireworks that followed. It was stillness, warmth. A moment that didn't need to prove itself to anyone. That night, in their home, after the noise faded and the lights dimmed, Nia stood barefoot in the kitchen, making cocoa for the kids. Cassian leaned against the doorway, arms folded. You really stayed, he whispered. I told you I would, she said without turning. And you love me. I do. He walked over, wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, and rested his forehead against her shoulder. You were never supposed to be permanent, he murmured. And yet, she smiled, here I am. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Comment, love chose me, if you believe some homes are built with healing, not perfection. And don't forget to subscribe, because in this family, no one gets left behind. Millionaire.